Welcome back to the wilderness, and today we're going to dive into the unusual mind of Misty Quigley as we ponder the question, is she an evil person? While she may be a fan favorite and portrayed wonderfully by actresses Sammy Hanratty and Christina Ricci respectively, we can't ignore the actions this clever young woman has perpetrated and the evil left in their wake. With that out of the way, on with the show. As with Shauna Shipman, we aren't really given a whole lot about Misty's background or her family life. The only thing we know about her is that she's the equipment manager for the girls' soccer team. We learn later that she had tried out for the team, but didn't do well. Coach Ben decided to make her the equipment manager so that she wouldn't make a fool of herself. Though she sees herself as an integral part of the team, it's clear that the others want nothing to do with her, seeing her as geeky. Her appearance betrays this as she wears large-rimmed glasses, long unkempt curly hair, drab clothing, braces, and a strange bounce in her step when she greets you with an eager hello. She's often pranked, ignored, and largely pushed aside, being treated more like an annoying little sister, and everyone else is just kind of forced to put up with her. The only other thing that we're given about Misty pre-crash is that she seems to have an emotional detachment. As she watches a rat in her pool starting to drown, she expresses no emotion besides what seems like mild curiosity. This leads fans to think that Misty likely has antisocial personality disorder. So before moving forward, let's take a more in-depth look at this disorder. Antisocial personality disorder, or ASPD, is often characterized by the disregard for or violation of the rights of others. While it's often associated with psychopathy, ASPD encompasses a wide range of disorders that don't all include violence. According to the DSM-5, or the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, the sufferer would have to exhibit at least some of these 7 criteria. Number 1. Failure to conform to laws and norms. Number 2. Deceitfulness. Number 3. Impulsivity or failure to plan ahead. Number 4. Irritability and aggressiveness. Number 5. Reckless disregard for safety of self or others. Number 6. Consistent irresponsibility. And number 7. A lack of remorse. Diagnosing characters on a television show is nearly impossible to do, and characters don't usually follow all of the characteristics to a T. But we can get close. And if we want to do that with Misty, we'll have to look at her actions after the crash. But feel free to keep these bullet points in mind. Immediately after the crash, we see Misty go to work rendering first aid to her injured teammates, but most notably for Coach Ben, whose leg was horrifically mangled, and without missing a beat, she slices off the limb with an axe. This may be a little extreme, but given the circumstances, it may have been the only option that he had, as without proper medical assistance, there was no guarantee that they were able to save his leg. And even if they did get proper care as soon as possible, perhaps they would have had to take the leg off anyways, and by then it would have become infected or more life-threatening than it needed to be. These first few moments tell us the most about Misty's greatest strengths and weaknesses. She's obviously intelligent, quick-thinking, and amazingly calm in a crisis, being able to see to all of their injuries, going from one to the other as if it was second nature. This includes the split-second decision to chop off Coach's leg, but this also shows an inability to plan ahead. As mentioned previously, they may have been able to save his leg, but they don't know if or when they'll ever be rescued. She hasn't thought of the long-term implications this will have for him, as now he will have to navigate the wilderness for the foreseeable future with just one leg, putting him at an extreme disadvantage. This is one of the bullet points of ASPD: impulsivity and an inability to plan ahead. And nowhere is this more evident as when she stumbles upon the plane transponder by happenstance. Here, she has a chance to take the machine back to the group, to let them know that rescue was imminent and all they had to do was just wait, and this nightmare would have been over. And had anyone else found the transponder, that may have happened. Misty has such a need to be wanted, to be relevant, and to be recognized for her talents, that, as she listens to her teammates walk past her, talking about how great she is, Misty destroys the transponder beyond repair. And perhaps a search party was already underway, and destroying the transponder wouldn't have made much difference? Or perhaps the transponder was already damaged when she stumbled upon it, and it wasn't even sending out a distress call. But Misty doesn't know that. Her intention in that moment was to destroy the transponder so that rescue would not come. Finally, she will have what she has lacked most of her life: power. Specifically, power over others, damning her teammates to be rats in her pool. With Coach Ben now dependent on others for assistance, Misty takes it upon herself to be his caregiver. This isn't like a peer-to-peer relationship, such as the relationship that he has with Natalie, or a nurse looking after their patient, but rather more like a mother looking after their child. She reminds him to eat, to exercise, and even to have a movement. But when he tells her to stop talking, she just starts singing. This could be another example of ASPD, as to her, she doesn't even see herself as doing anything wrong, but what is necessary. To her, cutting off his leg was something that had to be done. She's not being annoying, she's simply nursing him back to health. If only he would just see it her way, all would be well. He just needs to learn to accept her help is all. And if he won't learn, she'll help him learn. Now, is there anything inherently wrong with this? Not really, but it requires communicating and helping to bring others to your side of thinking through compromise and dialogue, and most importantly, consent. But Misty does not do this. She does what she feels is best, and if people don't see that it's the best thing for them, then she'll just make them see it, by any means necessary. When Coach Ben begins to get stronger and Misty is losing the power over her rat, she trips him while he's on his crutches and later poisons him in order to keep him under her care. As she nurses him back to health from the poisoning, she attempts to get closer to him by touching him inappropriately. And when he rebuffs her, she admits that she has romantic feelings for him. Now, it's not entirely clear if she developed the feelings for him before the crash, or if she developed them while she's taking care of him. But he thinks on his feet and tells her that he also has feelings for her, but because she is a minor, they have to keep it a secret. And this, for the moment, gets her off his back, but it doesn't take long for her to come back with a vengeance. During the fateful events of Doomcoming, Misty once again attempts to get closer to Coach Ben, and plans on putting psychedelic mushrooms into his stew. But Marie puts the mushrooms into the whole pot of stew by mistake. And though she sees Mari do this, Misty remains silent. And under its effects, the team gets close to assaulting Travis, and Shauna nearly slits his throat. While in this circumstance, not all the blame is on Misty, but it can't be ignored that Misty was attempting to poison Ben once again. And at this, he angrily confesses that he does not love her and that he is in fact gay. And finally, she leaves him alone. However, this would result in the team banishing Misty from ever working with food again, and leaves her with menial tasks to accomplish, like emptying the shit bucket. A definite fall from grace for Misty. Sort of seeking a purpose again, she decides to be one of the first of Lottie's disciples when she sees her kill a bear. But to be clear, Misty doesn't believe in anything that Lottie is talking about. She will just change depending on what the others are doing or what she thinks they want her to be. They want her to be the dutiful nurse, she adopts the role. She wants to be the brave and daring adventurer. She does it because of the praise and admiration she sees others getting. She sees Lottie become the sort of spiritual leader of the group. She joins the group. This is obviously Misty attempting to find connection and friendship, but she was able to find one in one of the other quieter girls, Crystal, as the two would share a love for musical theater. This relationship was actually quite positive for Misty, as the two would help each other break out of their shells, performing for each other and for the team, and generally receive positive responses. But all that goes right out the window when the two decide to share secrets with each other. As a way to cement their friendship, this is where Misty confesses to destroying the transponder. Once again, this shows Misty's inability to think ahead because honestly, what did she think was going to happen after such a life-altering confession? This took place a couple of months after the team had just eaten their teammate Jackie Taylor, and it was clear the torment that the winter was having on them. So why would Misty admit to this? Perhaps it was Misty just thinking that she found a friend that would accept her regardless of how bad her actions were. And honestly, isn't that all any of us want in the end? A friend that would accept us, both our negative and positive aspects, no matter what? I don't think anyone can fault her for this. Predictably, Crystal reacts with horror, coming to the logical conclusion that everything up to this point is Misty's fault. And though Misty tries to play it off as a joke, she ultimately threatens Crystal to stay silent or she will kill her. Which is kind of a moot point because Misty backs Crystal to the edge of a cliff and she plunges to her death. And though Misty tries to save her, she doesn't prevail. One of the symptoms of ASPD is a lack of remorse. And while Misty may not feel remorse in certain aspects, like when she's dealing with people outside of her team in the adult timeline, she does feel guilty over the loss of her friend. But so much is thrown at her in this moment that she doesn't really have time to grieve, or even establish an alibi when people notice that Crystal is missing. Aside from the massive winter storm hitting the cabin, Misty is called upon to deliver Shauna's baby. But Misty is vastly unprepared for such a procedure, having only learned basic first aid for babysitting jobs. Personally, the idea of Misty babysitting anyone's children is horrifying, but that's just me. As mentioned in the Shauna video, her child is stillborn, and while Misty does feel guilty about this, she once again doesn't have the time to grieve, as now her teammates are wondering where Crystal is, and have noticed Misty's apparent apathy in trying to find her. To maintain her cover, she leads a search party, and while doing this, she finds Coach Ben contemplating deleting himself. Misty kind of reacts strangely to this. I mean, sure, if anyone found someone in this situation, they would try to talk him out of it. But Misty resorts to threatening him, saying she'll out him as a gay man, and even threatened to tell the world that he had assaulted all of them while they were lost in the wilderness, and that he is the father of Shauna's baby. As we saw with Crystal, she immediately threatened his life. But it's for the greater good, right? Threatening to destroy his reputation? It's to save his life, after all. Or perhaps she doesn't want to lose another one of her rats. She's gone her whole life lying and manipulating to get people to do what she wants. So it's only logical that she would continue to do the things that she knows works. In the end, she laments that she simply doesn't want another death on her hands. And while it's implied that she's talking about Shauna's baby, of course she really means Crystal. But it works to talk Ben off the ledge. In Season 3, Misty sort of fades into the background, and other than the trial of Coach Ben, we don't see her making much of an impact in this part of the story. That would all change, however, when the scientists show up, as now they have a means of rescue. And seeing that their satellite phone is damaged, Misty uses pieces of the transponder to fix it. What's notable about this scene is that when Natalie discovers Misty had destroyed the transponder, Misty doesn't resort to threatening her like she did with Crystal and Ben, but rather just pleads with her not to tell the others. My theory about this is that after losing Coach Ben after he was mercy killed, Misty has lost the one person that was truly dependent on her, and so now she has no desire to stay. I think also now with Shauna in charge, and with her tight grip on the team, Misty's position isn't really safe anymore. With Shauna's bloodlust needing to be satisfied, it would only be a matter of time before the hunter's arrows were aimed at Misty. Thankfully, Natalie puts her rage aside after a much well-deserved punch to the face, and with the technology from the scientists, they were able to fix the machine and call for rescue. Let's recap what we've learned of Misty so far and what signs of ASPD that she shows. First, she shows an incredible talent in lying and manipulation. This helps to keep her in a form of power, using lies, sabotage, and even self-sabotage if she needs to, like destroying her own car to get a ride home from a date. Second, she displays an inability to plan ahead, acting and reacting with anger if things don't go her way. This often results in threats of violence. This is less seen in the adult years, as it's my theory that she learns from her mistakes, but she still has a tendency to act rashly, as we'll discuss momentarily. These are at least 4 of the 7: deceitfulness, impulsivity, aggression, and a lack of remorse. She is also very resilient to gore and violence, as when we pick up with the Yellowjackets 25 years later, Misty is seemingly the most well-adjusted. The first time we see her in the adult timeline is at her job. She's cheery and with a pleasant disposition as she tends to her patients in an elderly care facility. But clearly she is not liked by those in her charge, and when they raise a fuss, she responds with a chilling, "Don't fuck with me." It's worth noting that her chosen profession is no accident, as a caregiver of the elderly puts her in the unique position of having plenty of rats for her pool. As for positive traits, she's loyal to a fault. For as soon as she and her fellow Yellowjackets are threatened with blackmail to expose the secrets of the wilderness, she gets to work to try and find the culprit. Of all the Yellowjackets, Misty is most likely the least concerned about the truth being revealed, speaking for herself, of course. Because, as we've already covered, she saw everything she did in the wilderness as necessary for survival, and thus shouldn't feel any remorse for her actions. This being the case, she's likely the best person to have on your side, as she is able to think calmly and practically, especially when she comes home to find herself on the business end of a rifle from Natalie, who accuses her of sending the postcards. Throughout this time, Misty continues to use the tools she has used all her life to make herself relevant to the Yellowjackets. This includes sabotaging Natalie's car so that they have to go see Travis together, placing cameras in the Yellowjackets' homes so that she can spy on them, and even kidnap the fixer, Jessica, and keep her locked up in her basement. This event really shows the full psychosis of Misty, as while Jessica is locked up, Misty threatens her elderly father by sending poisoned chocolates, a purely innocent man. She then kills Jessica with a poisoned cigarette, But this could have been seen as Misty simply being curious as to what Jessica would do. The cigarettes were in the trash can, and if Jessica wanted them back, all she had to do was reach in there and get them. So, if Jessica dies by the cigarette that Misty poisoned, that she was trying to get rid of, then it's not Misty's fault. After all, cigarettes are bad for you. It's not clear if Misty wants to kill these people, or do something like clean up the crime scene of Shauna's lover, Adam Martin. She just sees it as necessary for her and her team's survival. Besides, Misty's friends need her, and she would do anything for her friends. When Natalie goes missing at the end of Season 1, she has a rare moment of vulnerability, as, to Misty, Natalie and her are the best of friends. She likely thinks this because Natalie hadn't told anyone about Misty destroying the transponder. Misty would also get some unexpected help from a man named Walter, a fellow citizen detective with some deep pockets, and shares a kinship with Misty. Now, if we're ever given more about Walter, I'll likely do a video about him too, but the question of is he evil is a big fat yes, as killing an innocent man who is simply doing his job in order to protect the woman you're crushing on is about as evil as it gets. While at Lottie's compound, Misty struggles against Lottie's teachings, especially when Lottie talks about self-reflection. This tells me that Misty is very aware of the things that she does, and that she knows that her actions are wrong to a degree. During a dream sequence, she asks a human version of her pet African Grey, Caligula, if people look at her and just see a woman desperate for love, or if they see only a murderer. Caligula replies that she just needs to think of herself as a closer, and not a murderer, though I think this is simply her subconscious trying to justify her actions. But really, I think this is the core of who Misty has always been. A woman desperate for love and connection and is willing to do anything to get it. And because she's willing to do anything, she has no problem killing to protect her friends. However, this is misguided when she is trying to protect Natalie from one of Lottie's cult members, which inadvertently ends with Natalie's life being taken. This is a moment of crisis for Misty, as her entire identity was wrapped up in protecting her teammates, doing whatever it took to keep them safe. But now, with all the threats seemingly eliminated and one of her friends gone, what else does Misty have? While Season 3's Misty may seem like a step down for the character, we finally see her beginning to take charge of her life, and try to gain some level of independence, away from the Yellowjackets. She no longer wishes to work with Walter, and she no longer wants to clean up the messes of her fellow teammates, specifically Shauna. And at the end of the season, we see her meeting with Taissa about how Shauna will not allow anyone to beat her, and that if they want to be the last woman standing, they will need to get rid of her. Something Misty seems all too eager to do. At the end of all of this, what is there to say about Misty Quigley? And is she evil? I think she is someone that, in the real world, would be diagnosed with a personality disorder, and in her desire for acceptance and love, did awful things in that pursuit. Destroying the transponder resulted in a spiderweb of calamity that reached every member of the Yellowjackets, with Misty being in the center of it all, whether directly or indirectly. Jessica called herself a fixer for the rich and powerful, so it stands to reason that she did some questionable things for her clients. And even if she did deserve punishment for those things, that wasn't for Misty to decide. Because of a man's infatuation with her, an innocent man was killed to keep him from discovering the truth. But he wouldn't have been killed if Walter hadn't entangled himself with the Yellowjackets' mess. And Natalie was simply at the wrong place at the wrong time. But she wouldn't have died had Misty not taken it upon herself to be the team's savior by any means necessary. And this is at the heart of, I think, who Misty is. She's a woman who desires nothing more than to have friendship, acceptance, and love. And while none of these things are bad in and of themselves, the way she goes about getting them are evil. Lies, manipulation, and murder all craft this woman into the devious pixie we love to hate. Beware of her friendship, though, as turning your back on her might just lead you to becoming another rat in her pool.